And you're welcome back. We're taking you to the focus for today. 10 years ago, yesterday, in the dark of the night, the people of Chibok in Borno State were soundly asleep, unaware of the impending horror that was about to unfold in their community. Suddenly, the silence was shattered by the violent sound of gunfire. In a first of its kind in Nigeria, Boko Haram Islamic terrorists stormed into the village like ghosts, their faces masked and their intentions clear. They moved swiftly with ruthless efficiency, snatching girls of the government secondary school from their dormitories and dragging them into the night. Panic erupted. Parents woke to the screams of their children being forced onto trucks headed for the dreaded Sambisa forest, the enclave of the Salafists. With their hearts pounding with terror, the helpless parents rushed into the streets, desperate to protect their loved ones. But of course, it was too late. The Islamist militants were already gone, leaving behind a trail of pain, devastation, and sorrow. 10 years later, the agony is still thick in the community. As the first lights of dawn broke, the full extent of the tragedy became clear. Although 57 of the abducted schoolgirls managed to escape that night by jumping out of the moving trucks, 219 of them were taken into captivity. They were snatched from their families, their future stolen in the blink of an eye. Chibok, largely a village of Christians, was left to mourn, to grapple with the unimaginable loss, and to wonder if their daughters would ever return home. Their fear is understandable. Some of the then adolescent girls are yet to be rescued 10 years later. To have this conversation with us this morning is Matthew Oluku. He is a social commentator. Good morning, Mr. Matthew. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
10 years, 14th of April, 2014. It's been very devastating for the entire country. So you can imagine what it's been like for the families of these young girls who were taken away from their loved ones just because they wanted to go to school. And 10 years after that, we've still had incidences of kidnappings in schools, incidences of children, young adults not being safe in school environments. It's been 10 years. Some were released, some escaped, some were found and rescued, yet some are still in captivity. How do you react to this 10 years later?
Okay, I must tell that it's quite unfortunate because it is believed that Sambisa is part of Nigerian sovereignty. And if you have a situation where the people you normally call non-state actors have what it takes, the capacity to hold your citizens hostage, captive, within the same sovereignty for 10 years, I think it's a big issue for us as a people, as a country.
It does speak to the security situation, in the country. That was the point of insurgency. The first time we were seeing things like that happen in a country like Nigeria, that's largely for over decades been referred to as very peaceful and, relaxing and welcoming to tourists and strangers. And for the past 10 years, Nigeria has continued to decline in the database of safe territories in the world. It continues to go down. At some point, we were at 56, and now we are beyond 100. It's quite unfortunate. Since then, the security situation in the country has continued to deteriorate and down to the point where we are at now. The Chibok girls were abducted 10 years ago. Nobody was questioned for that. Nobody was held accountable. Nobody arrested. 10 years later. What does that speak to the security situation that we have at hand? Would you say that we let this happen? We let ourselves get to this point where it's almost looking like we do not have a say in the security situation in the country?
I think it happened basically because Nigerian government do not have monopoly of coercive power. To be quite honest with you, as a country, we have no business sharing monopoly of coercive power with any non-state actor. Because that's what makes you a legitimate government. You exert authority on every inch of your territory. But the way it stands, we even saw what happened in Kaduna the other time, where a good number of students were adopted, though later rescued in Zamfara. So for me, I think it happened because the government, our security agencies, do not have total control of every inch of our territory in terms of policing it.
All right, talking about sharing cohesive power with non-state actors. This is over a decade and they've been released. So it means that all this while they've still been within the territories of the Nigerian state. And going by what the previous administration under the leadership of Muhammadu Buhari, we've heard statements from the Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, saying that Boko Haram has been technically defeated. At some point, he comes out to say Boko Haram have been technically, dislodged. Yet they are still within the Nigerian state, especially looking at it from our territorial, border. So, what does it speak of the personality of, Lai Mohammed and of course the previous administration, considering the fact that these people still share the same territory with us and still share, in your word, cohesive monopoly of power?
I don't think you have to call to question of the person of Lai Mohammed because he was representing the government at the time.
So what does it speak for the person and his
administration? No, he was speaking for the
for?
government. He was speaking for the government at the time. So for me, I think it is not true, if you ask me, that Boko Haram was actually technically defeated. Because if for any reason these students were within Nigerian territory and still in captivity more than 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and you have a government in place, I think it shows that our security agencies need to do more. But to start asking me about the personality of the then Minister of Information, I think he was speaking for government, not for himself.
So what does it portend for the image of Nigeria, considering it from our international community?
I suppose Nigeria as a country that is not safe. It has a lot to do in terms of even wooing investors to come into our economy. I think there is even an angle I'm looking at that even we are not seeing from the way I'm looking at it. Because I understand that information coming from that state shows that even the ones that have been rescued, in most cases, are still with their supposed repented Boko Haram husband, even without the consent of the parents of those girls.
All right, so now these girls are back, and of course, they didn't come back alone. They came back with children, to the tune of about 40, looking at it from the number. What does this mean for the parents? How would they receive this kind of, news that their children who were taken about 10 years ago are now coming back with children?
The trauma of most of these parents now is that even as they came back, the government had a settlement site for them, and in most cases, they are made to stay with their supposed husband they came out from in the bush or forest, as the case may be. And the marriage, whatever you claim to be a marriage, was done without the consent of the parents.
As a forced marriage?
Of course.
All right.
So I think that is even the worst scenario as we speak. And I think because in most cases you will hear, they will tell you that the girls decide to prefer to stay with the repented Boko Haram husband or so. So I think go to show that the whole exercise of rehabilitation, deradicalization is a complete failure.
Okay, so what's the likelihood that in the future these guys might likely come for their kids?
No, the issue is not even about coming for their kids. What I'm saying currently is the ones that have been rescued, that already have maybe children while in the bushes or forests, have not decided to stay with their supposed Boko Haram husband and live a normal life. What I'm trying to say in essence is these children, it means that it's another form of captivity because their mind have been captured. It means there was nothing like radicalization. It means they were not rehabilitated in any way. Because if someone had a particular ideology, belief, maybe during the formation stage, and was taken into captivity, and suddenly came out from the bush or forest, as the case may be, started singing a different tone, and all effort to make that person return to normal situation before she was adopted prove abortive. It shows that they were not actually de-radicalized. And one thing is, if you find it difficult to de-radicalize people who did not share the same, that particular ideology, how can you not claim that people who willingly accept this ideology, I'm talking about the Boko Haram members who they say they have repented, what is the guarantee that they will actually de-radicalize before integrating them into society?
So it's more like saying that you keep repeating the same lie to a particular person, with time that person would have a mind shift and believe that's...
No, it's difficult to believe that what they call repented Boko Haram, it's difficult to believe that they are repented. Because if you find it difficult to radicalize someone who do not share a particular ideology, and that person the ideology was forced on that person, how do you now come out to say, okay, that the people who actually see this as a way of life, who jettison the norms of the society and choose the different aspect of it, and perhaps, I don't know, maybe for convenience, they now come out and say they have repented. So it's difficult to believe that they have actually repented.
All right, let's look at intelligence gathering, security-wise. This happened 10 years ago, and since then, like I mentioned in my intro, nobody has been questioned, arrested, or held accountable for these issues. When I say intelligence gathering, let us assume that when this incident happened, the entire situation was new to the country. So we're trying to find our way around it. But it has been 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years and over. And you still haven't been able to hold somebody to answer to what happened in Chibok, Borno State, 10 years after. At some point, we saw the repentant Boko Haram extremist members who said they want to get back and become regular parts of the society. We saw monies spent by the federal government in unacclaimed rehabilitation programs for these men. What stops us from getting intelligence from these people? If they have decided to jettison where they are coming from and become a part of this part of the society, aren't they supposed to be able to answer certain questions for the military security members of the security forces in this country, right? Okay, that aside, some of the girls who got married to these men also came back, rejoined the society. You still couldn't gather information or some sort of intelligence from these people, and yet we claim to have a secret police in this country. We claim to have secret service men and women in this country. We claim to have one of the strongest military forces as far as Africa is concerned, and yet these people are in our territory, in the middle of Nigerian space, and we aren't able to answer these questions. Secondly, joining the point I just made, there at several points there are being finger pointing and accusations towards the military as to being a part of this entire mix. Maybe somehow having affiliations with these extremist groups in the country, causing mayhem. Would you blame people who have that school of thought, knowing that the security agencies have had more than enough opportunities to gather information and make sure that this particular situation is nipped in the bud, and yet nothing was done?
Let me start from the last point you made. It is difficult to indict or see Nigerian army as part of the problem. However, it is not out of place at times you hear maybe an individual who may be in the force may have questionable character. I think we are having instances where the authorities, the military, will have to, maybe one or two of their personnel question such person. But I think it's not right to look at Nigerian army as collaborating with insurgents. If you have one or two persons who may be involved in such, I think the authorities have a way of dealing with that. Then looking at our inability to gather intelligence, how long this thing have fester, I think we are approaching, as a people, as a country, I think we are approaching it from a weaker point of view. But ordinarily, there's no reason behind pleading with Boko Haram members to surrender if you have the intelligence, you have the wherewithal, you have all the power, what it takes to confront them. Don't forget that at the time, under the last administration, we had to buy 2 Tucano jets, which we felt that was a game changer. But unfortunately, it didn't give us the more needed relief we were looking for. So for me, I think the idea, because as it stands, you have instances where Boko Haram members will come out of the, according to maybe Borno government, they have amnesty in place. In window through which they absorb repentant Boko Haram members. But I don't think it is right, because we are looking at a situation where in some time under last administration, when Ndume, who was the then House Committee chairman on the military, visited Maiduguri Cemetery, it was discovered that a good number of military personnel who were killed by insurgents were buried in that cemetery. What am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say in essence is, what we are seeing may be demoralizing the effort of the military personnel who are actually fighting this war. Seeing that the government will absorb repentant Boko Haram into the society, and most of the military personnel who try to fight for the safety of Nigerian citizens have their grave in the military cemetery. So for me, I think it would have been better if you prosecute those Boko Haram members.